gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch for a dual guest episode we're going to do Superman 3. I'll go ahead and say it up front. We always wait afterward, but we're doing Superman 3, and I'm really excited to have three people talking about this extraordinary film. With me today is
Simon Day. Hello.
And
Stuart. Hello.
Hello.
So if this podcast, if you're obviously Christopher Reeve, Superman, Clark Kent, and Stuart's probably Robert Vaughn, does that make me Gus Foreman?
If you don't ski off the side of a building before this podcast is over, I'll be very sad. An interesting movie. I don't. I watched it a little bit ago. We had a little bit of trouble with scheduling to get on this one, but
well, I've mentioned this a long time ago. I think before you guys even did Superman 2 or maybe even Superman the movie, because you said you were going to do those with Stuart, and I was like, if you ever make it to Superman 3, please invite me as a little guest, because I don't want to step on Stuart's blue suede franchise shoes. Like, he's the Superman guy. I'm the kind of Bond guy. But I was like, that film's got a lot to talk about, really. Yeah.
So it's a weird movie. I mean, Stuart and I were talking about it kind of on chat after we both watched it. And the thing that, I can't remember if he said it or I said it, but we're kind of like, it's kind of two movies melded together. It's a Richard Pryor comedy happening, and it's a Superman movie happening. And I'd kind of like to see the Richard Pryor movie as a standalone thing.
Yeah. But it's got like that cold opening of Richard Pryor.
Yeah. It's got some solid comic moments in there. I remember the one that really stood out to me was was Robert Vaughn talking about, we'll never find this guy. We'll never know who it was because, he'll just keep on quietly stealing the money from us. Right. He'll never call any attention to himself unless, of course, he's a complete moron. And then cut to, he's screeching the tires, pulling the Ferrari into the parking lot,
That's
stuff like that I loved.
That's probably one of my favorite scenes, actually. It's funny you should say that. The only thing that undercut it a bit this time was Richard Pryor gets the check sent to him. And I'm like, it really wouldn't be hard to trace this guy.
I know, yeah. Yeah. That investigation takes about 5 minutes, I think. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's really silly about it. But I think, it's one of those like over the top, depictions of computer hacking in movies where it's ridiculous. But at the same time, it was sort of, with its eye to the future of that is where crime was headed, right? That
Office
is where
Space.
like Office Space, right? Robert Vaughn at one point he has a speech where he says, the man who rules the computer can rule the world itself or whatever. And it's like, he's not wrong. It's just, you can't create weather with a weather satellite, and you can't make, the little guys and the walk and don't walk signal fight each other.
That's the worst bit.
Yeah, but in principle, he's not wrong. I mean,
Well, it's the 80s it's the 80s, like computers are magical, isn't it? It's like,
right. Yeah. A computer could just do anything. Right.
Is it Pretty in Pink where they're in the library? And I think they start sending each other like crazy pictures. I'm like, we can't even do that now, can we?
The thing I remember is when they could always they could use the internet to find the blueprints for any building in town that they wanted to find.
Well, that's every CW show. There was always the person in the chair. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you say, though, it's kind of weird how it has that cold opening of Richard Pryor at the unemployment office, trying to get his money. And they're like, you've been getting it for 35 weeks, you cut off. And I'm like, Superman's almost a secondary character in a Richard Pryor film. Yeah, which is kind of weird, because it's Superman 3.
Until you get to Smallville. I mean, but then you go whole long sections without seeing Richard Pryor at all.
That's true.
So you get to the section where Clark gets to Smallville, and then it's like he started a whole different movie has started now, and it's all about him going home and seeing his old girlfriend and going to the high school reunion.
Yeah, playing the same song as Back to the Future.
Right. And you just sort of forget about the Richard Pryor connection until he just happens to show up, because that happens to be the where the computer access terminal is or whatever, where he has to show up in Smallville. But
it's also I love about the reunion the fact that he's not playing Clark as klutzy as he does in Metropolis, because he grew up with these people. So he's still kind of like, he eats the dog food and stuff, but he's not like, constantly like, whoo, dropping.
Yeah. No, I was saying that for a long time too. I feel like his portrayal of Clark and Superman is kind of, I mean, the script isn't the best, but his version of those characters is kind of the best in this movie, because I feel like he walks that line just right, where he's not, like you said, walking into doors and stuff, but he's still, he's noticeably, more nervous, around people. He's not as sure of himself. Right.
And I'm also thinking in the first 10 minutes, he's in a Richard Lester film. So he's going to look pretty.
I was gonna say that there's a third film that's happening.
Yeah, right.
And it's the Richard Lester movie. And that opening, when I was watching it again this time, I mean, it's like every time I watch this movie, I'm just more and more baffled by that's what coming off of Superman 1 and 2.
Well, you know what I like about it though? Like Superman 2, I felt like it almost kind of like bushwhacked you, whereas in this, it's like it lays out its story, and it's like, if you don't like the opening 10 minutes,
watch
this film.
That's totally fair. Yeah, like the opening scene does a good job of telegraphing the tone of the movie you're about to watch.
But what year did it come out? Like
83, I think.
So I remember this is one of the first movies my parents just left us at to go. Like they left. It was at the mall. It was me and my brother, and they left us to watch it. And I remember that opening sequence and kind of going, "What the hell is going on?" Or whatever a third grader thinks. Because it was a strange opening, and it had nothing tonally to do with what I thought of as being Superman.
I know I'm in the right movie because it said Superman 3 right there.
Yeah. And there he is with the guy whose car is somehow mysteriously filling up with water and his doors won't open.
That's right.
It's a weird mix of basically Richard Lester and a bunch of British character actors, because there's the old guy who the paint falls on him. He's Benny Hill's right-hand man. Then you got Graham Stark, who was in all the Pink Panther films as the blind guy. And then you've got the guy who falls in the hole, who actually is the same guy who saw Zod land.
Oh, right. Yeah. The guy in the boat. Yeah.
So you got all those guys doing their shtick. And, I mean, Christopher Reeve's just kind of walking through the middle of them, looking pretty normal.
I honestly think most of the gags in that scene work. I mean,
Yeah,
the guy slipping on the gumballs has me laughing every time. I mean,
They work, but
I like the penguin on fire.
I'm very into the idea of narrative economy, and it is
Yeah.
this whole movie is the opposite of narrative economy, right? Like if you talk even about like the part where Richard Pryor goes to Smallville,
The massive hat.
yeah.
which by the way, I love it, but they could have done all of that. The only reason he's there is they say something about, well, it's possible someone will figure out where this happened, so let's go to somewhere no one will think of. And I'm like, but you still own that company. That's how you
right. It's his company. Yeah.
It's like none of this makes any difference. They just wanted to have a scene with him and Brad drinking it up.
How's he know?
I like that scene too, by the way. I think that scene's hilarious.
No, it's great, but did they research that Brad was an alcoholic? Did they just presume that the night watchman would be an alcoholic? She turns out with this huge.
Yeah, that's interesting. He just shows up with a suitcase full of liquor. What if he turned out to be a teetotaler or something?
Yeah, it's Mormon Brad. It's like, I'm on to you.
Sorry. Well, then he's got plan 2 back in his car, right? He's got something else planned. I don't know. But this movie also always reminded me of War Games, because those are the 2 movies where 2 guys had to turn the key at the same time. And I thought his little Rube Goldberg device where he like strings the guy up to turn the key was a fantastic idea.
Well,
I know it's dumb, but I like it anyway.
No, I mean, and that you've kind of summed up why I love it, because I think I saw it. So it's the first video I ever saw. I saw this in Octopussy, and my aunt kind of hired them, and we watched them one night. And then Octopussy was actually a bit too plot heavy for me at the time, but we watched this twice, I remember. And ever since, it's just kind of stuck. And I think it just got me at the perfect age, because even watching it now, it's very nostalgic. And I know it's not a good film, and I know it's not a good Superman film, but I still enjoy it.
I know it's not good, but I like it. I think maybe one of the secrets of its success is little Ricky, right? You talk about seeing it at the right age. So I have a son who's 6 who loves Superman, and this is the movie he requests to watch the most. And I wonder if it has to do with you're seeing Superman through the eyes of a little boy, right? Yeah. And he kind of looks up to him. He's like, he's the guy who's dating his mom. Right. And he also, well, I guess Superman's not, but Clark is, but the viewer knows the difference. And not only that, but he sort of gets to rescue he gets rescued by Superman in the cornfield. Yeah. He gets to fly with Superman. He gets to be up on stage with Superman, right. And get all this attention. And then he gets to save Superman in turn in the end, when he like makes him realize that he's got to snap out of his,
that's very true.
Weird.
I totally appreciate your point. As a kid, I never identified with the kids in movies, and so
I don't know if it's about like consciously identifying with them, but just having that point of view being there. That like I don't know. Well, it's that's just a theory.
No, but I mean, I think it's really plot wise. It's one of the things that does succeed in this, and I don't know what script Christopher Reeve initially saw for this. I can see the appeal of the going back to Lana.
He had to be threatened with Tony Danza replacing him before he finally signed on.
Who among us hasn't been threatened by being replaced by Tony Danza?
Happened to me just last week.
And the weird thing is, like Richard Pryor said on Johnny Carson, he'd just seen Superman 2. And he'd love to be in a Superman film. And then afterwards, and he got paid $5 million. He could improv. He had loads of control. Afterwards, it came out. He said he hated it, which is a bit weird. And he said he was just joking on Johnny Carson, which is a bit strange because it's like he didn't put any effort in and then kind of blame the film. It's very strange. Yeah. So
Richard Pryor said he hated it.
Well, actually, everybody did.
Yeah, because I read people don't tend to have good things to say about it. Yeah,
Richard Lester likes it.
I like it. I mean, I admit that it's not well constructed.
Yeah,
so Ryan, you were talking about narrative economy, and I'm all about narrative economy, but there's also something to say for just I enjoy being in the world of the movie. I just enjoy going back there and being there.
But it's so many different worlds. It's so many different worlds, and that's part of the thing. Is like it's this Richard Pryor comedy that's like if you watch any Silver Streak or whatever,
right?
And like okay, that's happening over here, and then it's like even the whole thing of like the couple who gets sent by the Daily Planet.
Oh yeah. America. Like what? It's like they were being punished. It's like they were being punished.
Yeah, and I was like, and there's no resolution to any of that.
No,
it just happens.
It's just supposed to be funny, I think, and just the idea that this couple was on a vacation and their vacation is ruined, and they get horribly injured. That's the comedy.
Isn't Lois Lane there as well?
Lois Lane is not in this film, so she had fought like an animal with the Salkinds during the redo of Superman 2 from everything I heard.
So she was kind of against backing Donna the same as I think Gene Hackman was and Ned Beatty, and of course most of them didn't have to come back, whereas she came back and she says so they cut me out of the film, whereas they say well her arc was kind of finished in Superman 2 anyway, so
that's obviously total nonsense.
I don't believe it was finished, but I don't, and it might have been that they were punishing her, and then chose to make it all about Lana and Smallville because of that. But honestly, I kind of thought it was a refreshing change. I mean, I thought I liked the way it went. I thought it was nice to have a movie where he goes and kind of examines like, oh, this is where I came from, and maybe some of the choices I made, or how things could have been if I'd stayed home and things like that.
I for whatever reason it happened, and I firmly believe having no evidence and not knowing any of these people, that it was a contractual thing. She just got into an argument with them, and they were like it. So we know that we have this backup love interest we can go to, and we're not going to Lori Lemaris, which would have been awesome. But the Lana Lang mythology part of the Superman stuff, it's kind of funny because people always forget about it. And you're like, no, Annette O'Toole. Then everyone's like, oh yeah, right. I mean, and with thanks to Smallville and now thanks to Superman and Lois, like Lana's kind of come back and people know who she is. But
she's lovely as well in the film. It's very kind of a sweet little romance because she actually is attracted to Clark more than Superman, which is kind of sweet.
And she knows, when she was on Smallville, she would talk about how she grew up reading Superman comics. So she knew exactly what Lana's place was. And she plays very much to how Lana was in the comics. If you read at least the teenage Lana and kind of projecting what would that have been as an adult.
I also thought it was quite brave watching this again, because of course you watch this with our jaded old eyes now, and everybody's smoking and getting drunk and stuff, and but then with her, she's a single mother, and I'm like, that's pretty ballsy for 1983,
Yeah, but I remember when I saw it the first time, it just felt, considering you're talking the 80s and you're at that age, everyone's parents were getting divorced and all of that. It just felt, oh yeah, no, that it just water off a duck's back when I saw it. Seeing it now and knowing that it totally it is funny to go and watch a movie that was clearly intended for kids, where Superman gets laid, drinks, picks fights with people on the street, and all of which was incredibly, by the way, effective, because you understood this isn't how he's supposed to be, which is, as Stuart said, what Ricky points out, you're in a slump. You got to get out of it, man.
We won't jump the gun, but the best scene is obviously the junkyard, but we can talk about that later. But it's just what I remember talking about the cast, I do want to shout out for Shane Rimmer, who seems to turn up in all of these films in different little roles. And in this, he was like a cop, but you might remember him as the NASA guy in Superman 2.
Uh-huh.
But who I recognized this time? That I first time I've ever recognized him, the fire chief, who actually acts kind of badly in this, but that makes sense, is Al Matthews.
Oh yeah, that guy's a miracle guy.
Yeah, Sergeant Apone in Aliens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's the Sarge.
Speaking of that fire scene, I was just remarking how when we were watching the premiere of Superman and Lois, how it seemed like that show took a lot of. I might be a coincidence, but there are a whole lot of similarities between the pilot episode of Superman and Lois and Superman 3, including that rescue where he puts out a fire or a nuclear meltdown by going and finding a big chunk of ice and melting it. Right.
Oh, that was intentional.
And at the same time, he's going back to Smallville, right?
Yeah.
And seeing Lana again for the first time in a long time. I mean, it seemed like that was a nice little nod. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that they couldn't help themselves, and that's fine. I thought it was a great nod. It wasn't just because I just watched it. I don't know how you could possibly not have seen the parallels.
Well, no, you guys obviously know way more Superman mythology than me. But originally, the villain was supposed to be Brainiac in this.
I read that. Yeah, I don't know how that would have gone.
And then they were also going to introduce Supergirl, which I guess was going to go into her own film a bit smoother than just coming out of nowhere. And there was going to be, who's this guy, this other villain, who's kind of like, he's more like a kind of rascal. Is it Mr.
Mxyzptlk?
Oh, Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Mix. Yeah, I don't do the fancy pronunciation. I do the Super Friends pronunciation.
There's going to be Dudley Moore, apparently.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you read those things, I mean, who knows how far that actually ever got? I mean, I think half the time, people talk about, oh, they were going to do this or they're going to do that. It's like that may have been. What did it ever even get written into a script, or was that like something on a whiteboard somewhere?
Yeah.
I do think that probably wanting to do Brainiac probably ended up informing their Future Shock sort of idea about computers for this. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad they didn't do Brainiac. I'd like to see Brainiac now. In something, because he would have been, well, I don't know. I mean, if they would have done like Crazy Brainiac and like
it would have definitely been Robot.
Monkey.
It would have been Robot Brainiac. It wouldn't have been.
Did he exist?
Kolu Brainiac. Oh, I'm not sure.
Because I don't think the George Perez one showed images started showing up till like 84, 85.
That's true.
No, I mean it's some interesting decisions, yeah. But I know it's kind of like you say those. I think when they went with Richard Pryor. It was like that was really the big crux of this, that everything else started spinning around. Kind of like they nearly had Eddie Murphy in Star Trek 4, and thank goodness pulled back at the last minute.
Yeah, and I think Superman 3 and stuff I've read, Superman 3 was cited as a reason why they pulled back from that decision, because they're like, remember what happened with Superman 3? We don't want that. Because then if it fails, I think the reasoning is like, we have one franchise that's Star Trek over here, and we have one franchise that's Eddie Murphy movies.
Yeah.
And we've put both of them in one basket and they both fail. Well, then it's like losing two tent poles.
Yeah. I like two different flavors. I like chocolate.
Yeah, right.
I like chocolate and I like green beans.
Let's put them together. We're gonna have the best thing
ever. Going back to Lois not being in the movie, it was a bit. I remember as a kid thinking, "Gosh, it was kind of a shame that she wasn't there more."
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also thought it was a shame that they lost Marlon Brando for Superman 2. And now, as I go back later, on both of those decisions, I'm fine with losing them, because even if it was done not for creative reasons, right? If it was done, because we can't afford this person anymore, or we have a vendetta against them, and we don't want to be in the movie. I like in the case of Marlon Brando, I thought it was nice to, we'd seen him a lot in the first movie, and I thought it was nice to then get, his relationship with his mother kind of front and center, in the second movie. And this, for the same reason, I thought it was nice to, now that we'd had the Lois relationship been the main focus for a while, well, let's see how he behaves around someone else, and somebody who maybe values him for other qualities, right? Like you said, Lana's more attracted to Clark than Superman. So so whether it was for creative reasons or not, I thought it works for me.
Yeah. Well, apparently Richard Donner had a 4-film plan, and of course he ended up doing 1.5. And like his big bugbear was like, I mean, the first movie had so many writers, but David and Leslie Newman were like the ones that wanted to put in stuff like, you know, in the first movie, Superman sees a bald guy, flies
Telly
down.
Savalas, yeah.
Telly Savalas. Lex Luthor. No, it's Kojak.
Yeah.
Who loves you, baby? Gives him a lollipop. And it's like, unfortunately, they had free reign on this script. Like, there wasn't anybody to stop them anymore. So I feel like that's also part of the problem, really.
Well,
It's
I mean,
like-
and part of it ends up just like you think of wildly expensive. Some of these completely pointless things are like, I was just mind boggled thinking about they had to build the chalet set.
Yeah.
And then they had to actually film the stunt of somebody falling off a building. And then they had to film Richard Pryor on a city street with the cape and the skis on walking around.
Ooh.
Yeah, that wasn't like, oh, we had a little idea for a gag and we just did it in the spur of the
It's
moment.
a very expensive gag. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not really that funny.
It's not that great. Yeah. I mean,
Even when you were a kid, you're like, that's bullshit. Basically. So,
yeah, I mean, the
Honestly,
big payoff of it is that's where Superman goes and has sex with the blonde woman. I mean, it's that, or Lorelai. I mean,
yeah.
Actually, my favorite part of that's I don't like the falling off the skiing off the side of the building part is too far for me. That's like that's like the walk and don't walk guys fighting each other. But the part of that scene I do like is Richard Pryor just kind of geeking out about Superman.
Yeah,
I love that part where he's just like, and then he uses these laser beams from his eyes. Bzzz,
I think that's what he was doing
that's
on
me.
Carson.
That's the same way I talk about Superman.
Yeah.
But I think that's what he did on Carson, though, right? I mean, isn't that what got him he was kind of playing?
I've never seen this famed Johnny Carson interview that everybody's always talked about.
Well, the thing is, I've not seen it either. I saw Christopher Reeve talking about it.
I've seen people talk about it. Yeah. But so as far as I know, that's what happened, but I don't know to what extent he actually expressed enthusiasm for Superman.
I've seen at least a clip of it or part of it, and he's raving about Superman 2 being great. And and I don't know, I mean, it worked, you know, he obviously got all that creative control and a big paycheck, and then that led to him getting, I think, like 40 million for 5 films with Columbia for the rest of the 80s. So, you know, I guess it pushed him into the PG camp.
So Richard Pryor seems to have kind of gotten away unscathed, even though people didn't like the movie, right? It seems like he was still his brand. He came out just fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of surreal for me because when we had all that snow, I was watching a couple of Richard Pryor live concerts, and then watching Superman 3 afterwards, even though I'd seen it a million times, I was a little bit kind of on edge because I was expecting him to like say something really inappropriate at any point. And I'm like, this is very strange, you know, because at least Eddie Murphy kind of like almost like segregated those parts of his career. Whereas Richard Pryor was kind of doing them parallel. So, yeah. But, I mean, I guess that's where the money is.
Had he already done The Toy at that point? When was The Toy?
Yeah, The Toy was before this.
The Toy was a kid's movie, pretty much. I mean,
there's
nothing too inappropriate.
I mean, I guess.
Weirdly, isn't that Richard Donner directed The Toy?
It was, yeah.
Hey, guys, we actually have to pause, and we're going to lose this in a minute. I thought we would be okay with 3 people on this. I'm going to have to start an entirely new meeting. So I'm going to email you guys a new meeting. All right. Thanks.
Part 2 coming soon.
Part 2. I don't know where we were anymore. We
miracle.
So just so people know, like, we're trying to use Zoom, and I thought we were fine with 3 people for as long as we wanted, and in the 10 minutes before it ended, Zoom suddenly was like, "Do you want to do this and pay for it?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I'll just pay for it for like a month." And I thought it was going to be like $10, and then it was like, "Nope, it's going to be $150 for the next year." And I was like, "I love these guys, but I'm not dropping $150 right now."
Well, it's only worth $140.
Now we got to figure out how much I love you guys, what the dollar amount would have been. Anyway, but yeah, I think having the Lana storyline definitely does give him like this whole other thing to pursue, and it definitely, kind of brings you back to the idea of like the wholesomeness he's supposed to be, and it's a good comparison and contrast with both the Smallville and what's going on there.
I feel sorry for the dude from Superman the movie who played him as a teenager, because he has been replaced with Christopher Reeve's young face on the wall.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that's it's Jeff Eastland erasure, man.
Is that a normal thing to have like giant blown up black and white photos all over the wall on your high school reunion? Because it was in that movie, and it was also in Peggy Sue Got Married.
Oh, interesting.
I have not been to any of my high school reunions, and I'm not planning to go to my next one. So I will ask though.
But those movies like informed what I thought a high school reunion was supposed to be, I guess. So if I finally ever go to one and there's not giant blown up yearbook photos on the wall, I'm going to be disappointed.
I expect it to be the same disappointing mess as Grosse Pointe Blank is what I.
Yeah. Like I only know about high school reunions by watching American films, so I'm not even sure if we have them in England.
I will only say, like, I got a phone call from a friend who was at my 20th reunion that I did not go to, like in the middle of it. She was drunk, telling me about someone else who was way drunker and how funny it was. I was like, yeah, that's why I'm not there. Yeah. But anyway, yeah,
we're that drunk all the time in England, so we didn't have to do reunions.
Right.
See, if Superman 3 were today, it would just be like he receives a friend request from Lana out of the blue on Facebook.
It'll be on Zoom.
That's right. Be like, oh, should I accept? There'd be that hesitation with the cursor hovers over the accept friend request.
But I do think it has a nice contrast of kind of like what's going on in like, the city and with like big business in the 80s. And 83 is still even a little early for the whole like Wall Street sort of thing. But then you also you have Lorelai, who's on this other end of the spectrum, who's I think also like I think she was on Saturday Night Live for a while. That actress.
She was on Not the 9 O'Clock News, which is like an English sketch show that also had Rowan Atkinson. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that just finished, and it's really surreal seeing her in this, because about this time, she married Billy Connolly, and I think became a proper counselor or psychoanalyst.
Yeah, I looked her up, and yeah, she has like a column in the Guardian where she does like Dan Savage sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just Richard Lester's influence, because there's also Sandra Dickinson pops up, who's the woman who gets the grapefruit, kind of like in a very kind of like PC way now, especially pushed in her face by her husband because the phone bill or something, or the credit card bill. And she's again like an English actress who's married to one of the Doctor Who's, and it's just like, why was she in that film for like 2 seconds? It's like, but I guess it was filmed in England, it's like they grabbed people who were around and available.
Well, speaking of the big business angle that you were saying, something I noticed this last couple times I've watched the movie is the ubiquity of the Wheat King logo all over Smallville.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you go into downtown Smallville, it's everywhere. It's on, billboards and sides of buildings and stuff. It's on every single piece of farm equipment, right? That's the building that he goes to. That's like apparently the only job that Brad can get in town is with Wheat King. And I remember how, in Superman 4, it's like he can't find a family he's trying to sell the farm, remember? And he can't find a family to move into the farm. And I'm wondering if there's like a straight line, unintentional, of course, right, between, the big business taking over small town farming that runs through Superman 3 and Superman 4.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point, because at this point, people were pretty aware of like the farming crisis in the U.S. And I mean, that's when you had like Farm Aid as like the concert series that Willie Nelson supported. And they were basically raising money for farmers. This is just before they figured out, if we subsidize the farmers, they'll vote for us. And that, that's continued now for, nearly 40 years as like government policy is, if you want to have any kind of family farms at all, you got to pay people to not grow stuff. It's an interesting, little tidbit of history. I was aware of what was going on with farms because we had, it was on the front page of the paper at the time, but I didn't apply that to this. Gus was being funny. That's all I knew when I saw it the first time. The other thing is this also predates the idea, by just a little bit, of Lex Luthor becoming a big corporate tycoon.
Yeah.
He was still in the comics at this point. Like, I'm just a bad guy. That's my job. I wear prison grays all the time, and I have a secret fortress where I keep statues of Genghis Khan and Al Capone and all this. You're
really smart. That was, he's really smart, and usually he's a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. He wasn't a businessman yet. But
they may have gone to Planet Lexor and all that by this point in the comics, but Marv Wolfman always tries to claim like I'm the one who invented corporate Lex, and I'm kind of like, or did you? Because it's not a huge jump to see the move from Robert Vaughn and his sister to Lex.
Do you feel like Robert Vaughn is a kind of poor man stand-in for Lex Luthor, or do you think he's got enough going on by himself? Kind of, not to say there aren't a million kind of evil industrialists out there, but
I think probably this was really informed by what was going on in the news at the time. Between one, you need to have someone who's going to have a computer system, and to Stuart's point, kind of what they talk about with the person who owns the computers. And so I think there was a bit of just logicking it out, but this is kind of in that, like, the beginning of the Wall Street era of greed is good. And there were a lot of conglomerates that were starting to form up, which we'd never really seen before. Like, literally a company my dad worked for made oil tools. I'm trying to remember what was in their portfolio, but it was hilarious. Like, and when I say oil tools, I mean like drilling into the earth sort of things, but they also made like hammers and screwdrivers, and like it was just their portfolio just like made no sense and companies don't do that anymore. It's not, you don't have like Megacore that just goes around and buys companies. Now when that happens, it's much more about, we're going to take the company apart and sell the assets. It's kind of the opposite. But that's it's kind of this weird mix of almost the trading places idea of, we're going to try and corner the market on specific goods. He's already got wheat, and now he's going for oil in this movie.
Well. And coffee.
And coffee, right?
And socks.
I can't tell you how often I think about that line and have thought about it since I was a kid.
I like that it takes him a long time to figure out that they maybe don't do anything to the socks. He goes through all these, maybe they turn them into pen wipers or dust rags or maybe socks. Doesn't occur to him. They might just remain socks. No, anyway, so you said before that there's like a couple of movies going on. And if you take Superman out of the movie and you just do it then it's a story of this guy who's like this sort of everyman, this bumbling guy, kind of a loser, who accidentally discovers that he has an aptitude for computer programming, and then
idiot savant.
right, and then and then somebody takes advantage of him and says, "Hey, you can make me rich." So, but the guy who would be able to take advantage of him would have to be already rich, because he'd have to be somebody who has his, has investments in places, right, and is trying to corner markets and things like that. So I think, like you said, by necessity, it just had to be somebody who was like, a captain of industry or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's highly unlikely Gus would have ever thought to do anything but help himself and maybe a few friends.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's.
Well, he's very childlike, isn't he? Out of all the characters, I mean, they're all pretty childlike.
That's what when he expresses his desire, his thing, all he wants to do is get down and boogie. Right? That's what I want to do. And he's frustrated because he doesn't want money when he retires. I want money now. I can get down and boogie.
Even
That's all he cares about. And then when he gets the money, he buys a sports car. I mean,
yeah. Even in the end, where he's like, you're going to go down in history as the man who killed Superman. He's like, what? No. And it's like, haven't you thought about this before?
Yeah, that even as a kid, that aspect of the movie always that was something that didn't ever ring true to me, because I thought, but he's just going along with this. Like, he goes from being this guy who's like a big fan of Superman to being okay with just handing him a chunk of kryptonite.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Although I guess he knows it's not going to kill him. So, but he doesn't know what it's going to do.
But still, I mean, yeah,
I mean,
that never quite rang true to me.
I also kind of feel like, whenever Richard Pryor protests about, the film being rubbish, I'm like, well, you had probably open range to improv, and your improv is very bad. Like, we're like, Superman, I'm here, on behalf of the US Army.
Yeah.
And it's like,
about the plastic chairs.
Yeah.
You want the President of the United States sit down to write a peace treaty and have the ballpoint pen bust open. Yeah.
Christopher Reeve looks at a loss in that scene. Like, he's
where is he going?
Yeah.
That was like the 10th take or something, and he tried a bunch of other things.
And you have to think about all the people who are sitting in a field in Canada or whatever, like all day while he's doing that.
Speaking of which, that scene now looks eerily similar to me, where they're doing the whole key to the city thing in the small town, and there's Superman there, shaking hands and smiling at people. That scene looks so much like what it looks like in the real Metropolis, Illinois, every summer when they have the Superman festival, right? Where you have people in costume going around and posing for pictures and stuff. And it's a very small town, and it looks a lot like what Smallville looked like in the movie.
Yeah. So I've been with Stuart to the Superman festival, and I will wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
In fact, I know what Stuart should cosplay as next year. Wear the helmet, wear the general's outfit, bring your red kryptonite.
Black card. I'll be right.
Oh yeah. Since you brought that up, why do you think they didn't make it red?
I don't think they knew about red kryptonite. I don't think anyone involved with the production had the slightest.
So it was just a coincidence. They're just like, let's come up with a different kind of kryptonite.
Yeah, or they thought the audience would be,
and they had no idea that they'd been doing that in the comics for decades.
I think it's possible, and I think it's also possible they thought the kids will be confused if kryptonite isn't green. Kryptonite is green.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I was confused the other way. So as a kid watching it, knowing about red kryptonite, I was like, why isn't it red? Because to me, kryptonite that's not kryptonite, that has some other effect on Superman, is red kryptonite.
And every time I am shocked when I watch this movie, it's not red. I go, right, it's not red.
I'm like, oh, right, it's not red. Yeah, but it should be.
Would they not disguise it so Superman doesn't realize, though? Maybe. So maybe they're just like.
No, they hand him a hunk of something that looks like kryptonite.
That's an argument to make it red, though.
Yeah.
If you want him to not back away from it,
The other possibility is the prop maker missed the part where it said this thing's supposed to be red and showed up on set that day and it was green, and they're like, You
want me to go back and make another one? No.
Yeah, no, yeah. We have to film this now. I mean, stuff like that happens all the time.
They might have just had the one from the first movie, and they were just like, just use that again. in storage. We found it in a cupboard somewhere. So.
But it really doesn't look. I mean, it's given to him as an award, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like an award. It doesn't look like a precious gem or something.
Even as a child, I was like,
I was like, what?
To make this work. Yeah.
No, that does not work.
also, like as a non, kind of like Superman fan, kind of the history of Superman. For me, just watching the movies, it's like the first film, he takes it off and he's okay. And in this one, I guess he's taken it home and put it on a shelf, but it still messes him up completely, even though he's nowhere near it.
Well, so that's another argument for being red kryptonite. Red kryptonite affects him for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it has amazing properties. It can turn him into a giant ant or a 60-foot tall stupid Superman. Like it's
always unpredictable.
It's always unpredictable.
Yeah.
Whatever they decide to put on the cover this month.
But one of the things I like too about this version of it is, it supposedly turns him into evil Superman, but even evil Superman isn't that evil. I mean,
he's just a guy.
He's just kind of a dick. He just kind of does. He goes around and he does, childish pranks on people.
Speaking of, that's the thing that I still think works beautifully is the Eiffel Tower stuff.
Yeah.
I still laugh at that.
Blowing out the Olympic torch.
Oh,
he waits for the guy. He waits for the guy to touch the torch and that's fantastic. I mean, yeah. So to me as a kid, I remember reading that as like, this is as evil as Superman gets, right?
Yeah.
There is this is you've turned the evil dial up to 11 and he's still not that bad.
Well, it's also, I guess it's kind of enough so he can be redeemed, because I'm thinking like, if there'd have been people on that bus,
oh yeah, sure, yeah,
they'd have been like, whoa, there's no coming back from that.
Sorry guys, I was under the influence, but then you've lost the trust of everybody. So.
Easy
Lorelai sees him when he shows up at the computer hole, and she's like, hey, remember me? And he's like, I don't know you. And you're just like,
dodgy.
No, Superman, that's not how that's supposed to be done. You have to have a very important conversation with that young lady.
Yeah, that's especially dodgy these days, saying that. But when you were a kid, the famous scenes, the traumatic one was Vera being turned into a cyborg or whatever,
right?
And then of course the famous one, which I would still argue is the best Superman scene from any Superman movie, is the junkyard scene. Although I can't take credit for this, but I read somebody's comment the other day which made me laugh, which is it like Fight Club? And if somebody was watching, is it just Superman hitting himself?
I think that's a very good question.
I think that's a good question. And I like that it's ambiguous. I remember wondering that as a kid too. I remember wondering, is this all going on in his head? Are there physically two guys there?
Yeah.
But I like that it's ambiguous.
Yeah. Totally.
I think it was maybe the first time as a kid I was really exposed to something I understood to be, whether it was actually occurring or not, the symbolism of what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, here's a man at war with himself. Like, I totally grok this. Like, they didn't. Yeah, they spell it out for kids, kind of, but it's not like he turns to the camera and goes, okay, children, here's what's happening.
He kind of says, Ken, you've always been annoying to me. And, you've always been like an itch I can't scratch.
It totally works thematically with going back home and having somebody tell you that, you don't have to be Superman to be valuable to me.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe instead of going the direction my life has been going with Lois, maybe I should pursue this other person. Maybe there's a different life for me, I
can be myself more, kind of. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It totally works.
Superman stepdad.
Right. That's right.
So back in 2013, the Alamo did the summer of 1983 kind of anniversary, and they showed the films that came out the same dates they originally came out. And I went to see this on a big screen at the Ritz, and the junkyard scene did get a huge applause, which is kind of really cool.
It's got that shirt rip at the end. I mean, that's a crowd pleasing moment. I mean, that's honestly, that's great.
He's back.
It's got the John Williams, he bursts through the wall, and honestly that's the best shirt rip image in the series, better than the one in the first movie, which I still love, but I mean this one takes the cake.
Well, the first one is the first showing. This is the one of he's back, baby.
He's back, and it's a self-affirming. It's like when he pulls the shirt back, it really is his statement of like, this is who I am, right? I'm back. This is the real me. I know who I am now.
Again, a completely different movie. I mean, it's. We're talking about going from like Gus Gorman skiing off
a donkey,
right?
Oh my god! And Atari sounds to this like, well, this is the stuff of literature. Like it's a crazy ass movie just from how it was thrown together.
Well, it's like you say. It's funny how there's some great stuff in here, like his transitions. Like I love when he runs behind the fence.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing shot. Yeah, and every time I watch it, if I'm watching it with my kid and he happens to be paying attention to something else, I'm like, look at the screen right now. Don't miss this. This is great.
It's good stuff. The photo booth as well. He just stares off the last photo.
That's great. There's lots of great stuff like that.
What is the line the fireman has when he's like get this man a helmet or something, and then he turns around, oh, it's you.
Never mind the helmet. But I remember too, there's a bit where the guy is like, what's he going to do? Fly him down one at a time? And I remember thinking, why couldn't he just fly him down one at a time?
Yeah.
He's Superman.
Yeah, really fast.
I mean, it's fine. The thing that he does is fine because it's unique. It's like.
Well, I would also like to see how they did that. That's it. There's a giant pipe Christopher Reeve is hanging on.
Right. Yeah. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks great. It's kind of funny because now we have the Superman and Lois show on, which is the changes from the Adventures of Superman, which I still adore, but it's pretty much a dude bursting through obviously foam walls, to the fight scenes in just the first 3 episodes are to me better than Man of Steel. Like they're really cool.
They're very reminiscent of Man of Steel. There was one where they're doing the whole flying horizontal or perpendicular to the ground.
They remembered to keep the camera on the characters instead of having them whiz past the camera.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But that's one of the cool things about watching Superman through the years is how they're actually going to show this thing that just happens in the comics because they draw it. And Superman 3, after Superman 2 and you have the fights, Superman 3 gets you back to kind of the heroics of kind of saving the day and what does all that look like. And the frozen pond scene still really holds up. Like that's really cool stuff.
It doesn't hold up in the sense that it would work in real life, but it definitely holds up in the sense that it's totally something you would read in a Silver Age comic book.
Mm-hmm. But also it's 100%. Nice, even though the script's like quite wonky, I like how at least they have the acid in early on. So this doesn't come out of the blue later on.
It's like in there. Watch out for that acid, by the way.
There's more setup of that than there is of. There's no real reason Superman should know it's Robert Vaughn and that whole crew.
They leave a message for him and they tell him where they are.
Right, except for
they tell them, They leave a video notice. Yeah. And I'm like, Superman, the first thing he should do is fly that videotape to the FBI or something, because there's like a full confession on this videotape that they left him.
Yeah, just freeze all his assets. That'll
But there's no connection between it's in a bit like Lex, right? Like Lex goes looking for Superman in the first movie. Superman's not and which, by the way, the other nice thing about Zod being the exception of the first 3 movies, it's now they always want to have the heroes have some kind of tie, like, oh, you're my uncle or whatever. It's always personal, and there's nothing personal going on with Superman and this whole crew.
It starts to be just like, we need to get Superman out of the way because he's going to continue to foil our plots.
Yeah.
But it seems to be toward the end, like they lose sight and they're like, we need to become a Superman killing organization.
Who
like
amongst us has not decided that at some point?
Yeah.
When you get to that point in your visioning, yeah, it's.
I really wanted that video game too, that he comes up with the missiles. Remember at the end,
they actually said,
and I'm like, that needs to be a real video game where you're like dodging instead of shooting at him. You need to be dodging the missiles or whatever.
Well, they said they came up with one that was so realistically looking, they had to dumb it down for the film, and I'm like, no,
really, no,
you didn't.
Not in 1983. They didn't. No, I'm sorry. Whoever thought that is wrong.
It's lying very bad.
Yeah.
It's great fun though, kicking the missiles and everything. It's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, the kicking the missiles. Yeah, they kicked the one in front and it like ricochets off the other two.
And I love the X1 or whatever it is. It's like, oh, this one looks like Darth Vader, so you know it's really bad.
Yeah,
it's like a Cylon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, wah, wah.
It's not actually missile shaped for some reason, but yeah, we're launching it.
Well, then the computer's like, I mean, I guess Gus takes the screw out with the start button,
right?
And swallows it, but then it kind of powers itself up. But it fires that bubble at Superman. I'm like, would that bother him? Because he flies around in space. So
I just assumed it was making him really uncomfortable from some unseen force or something. I don't know.
It's like allergic to that.
Maybe he's claustrophobic. I don't know.
I just like the idea that he's just super annoyed.
I do remember a feeling of when I was watching these movies as a kid, which I did a lot. I remember one of the things I liked about Superman 3 was I never really felt like Superman was in a lot of danger.
Mm.
There was always, they were throwing stuff at him. And I never really got scared like something was bad was going to happen. Whatever it was, if he gets hit by the big missile, he just like shakes, he's unconscious for a couple minutes and then he shakes it off.
Well, I think the worst bit's when the kind of wires go around his face and you've already seen what happened to Vera.
But it's Superman. I mean, it's wires.
Yeah.
There's wires.
A lot of wires.
I remember being scared. Watching Superman 2, I was really scared that like he was, even though I'd seen it a million times, every time I would watch it again, I'd be scared that because I knew that Zod could actually like kill him, right? Because they have the same powers he does. And I remember really feeling kind of uncomfortable in the scene where the scene at the diner, right? Where he gets thrown through the glass and he's bleeding and I really felt that vulnerability. Yeah. And I don't feel anything like that watching Superman 3. I'm like, this is a fun adventure and he's going to come up, there's going to be obstacles and he's just going to get through it, whatever it is.
But I remember as a kid kind of going like, oh my God, how many of these things are we going to have to rotate through before he actually gets to the computer? Because it's obvious he's going to. Yeah. They have to give everybody else their business to do.
But again, I just enjoy. I mean, that's the difference. Back to the narrative economy thing. I just enjoy watching it. I know how it's going to turn out, but I just enjoy being there.
But also just the fact that they're like, I know the computer's doing the same thing, but Rob Bavon's like, fire the missiles. It's like, if you know anything about Superman, it's a waste of time, really. It's a waste of time. Just get loads of kryptonite.
Try it, yeah. Just go straight to the kryptonite, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's they do say they have some, and they finally got it right. I mean, that's part of what they're shooting the kryptonite beam at him.
It's funny that they just gloss right over that, though. They spend like a good third of the movie on trying to get the kryptonite, not getting it right, and then later in the movie, oh, by the way, we got some.
Yeah.
Like, how did you, I thought the element was unknown. How'd you figure that out?
We talked to Lex Luthor in prison.
Right.
He's very bitter.
But yeah, I mean, it also of course has we alluded to the scene with Vera getting pulled in, and everyone kind of had nightmares from that.
Yeah,
I even alluded to it in one of my very first Film One films, where.
So they're not dead at the end, though. They're all kind of fine because he goes, the police are going to pick him up.
It's totally a comic book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's fine.
Yeah,
They're going to be hauled to jail or whatever.
But yeah, I mean, and then of course she came out with like all covered in metal, and everyone kind of like lost their minds about that. And there was, you never know what's gonna trigger kids in different ways. I was talking to a coworker about WandaVision, and I was like, how are they, dealing with it? This is some. Simon's only on episode 3. I'm afraid.
Yeah, no spoilers. No spoilers.
But you're like, well, there's this, flash of vision at one point, and that was what totally set him off. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, yeah, they'd watched like every Marvel thing, and for some reason that was.
Meaning the kids were scared?
Yeah, kids were like in the room from that. Yeah. And maybe it's just the idea of like losing your humanity, or the the zombification of somebody that's just that freaky when you're that young. I don't know, but
you've gone a bit quiet, Ryan, by the way.
I'm covering my mouth as I'm talking. I'm being very thoughtful.
I find it's very difficult to predict what's going to bother kids. With my own kids, like my 6-year-old he can be very sensitive. Just the other day we were watching the new SpongeBob movie, and he cried like bawled and left the room 3 times when it looked like SpongeBob and his pet Gary were going to be separated forever. That was like the worst of the worst. But on the other hand, he sat through like some pretty, he sat through, most of the MCU movies with me, which are PG-13. And he'll be fine, So, but if you separate, another one was when Shaggy and Scooby were going to be separated at the end of Scoob, that he lost it at that one too. He can't handle that. So
interesting. Yeah.
It's actually when her eyes open and it's over. I think that's the kicker.
Yeah. It's just a creepy image. She's just a robot zombie. I mean,
yeah. And they had no idea. They were like, this is fun when they were making it.
Yeah.
Like, look how much like a robot you are.
But I mean, it's not bad. I think it's good. I think it's good to scare kids, honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
As long as they're not like,
traumatized forever.
That's part of the fun. I mean, it's like a roller coaster
talking
ride,
about something that happened to us when we were 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's
the bugs in the ears in Methacon.
And a lot of times it's those moments in non-horror movies that get you the most because you're not expecting it, Yeah. You're not, if you're watching a horror movie, you're sitting there just waiting for the creepy things to happen. But if it's like those little earworm guys in Wrath of Khan or whatever, or the robot zombie in Superman 3, it just like comes from out of nowhere.
Yeah. And also, is it any worse than, I mean, I was pretty most traumatized by E.T. laying in a ditch.
Oh yeah. That got my oldest kid got her. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had nightmares about that. She would have nightmares for weeks where she said she would wake up and there was E.T. chalk white.
He's too white.
Reaching out to her.
Oh, geez.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm going to have bad dreams. That's horrible.
Right? And I showed that to her when she was 5, and I thought it would be fine because I saw that movie when I was 5, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of
Yeah.
time again, and I think that probably that means we've talked for 80 minutes about this movie almost. So
only 80 minutes on Superman 3.
I know. But I really appreciate you guys checking in on this one. I think we could continue to talk about it for another hour, but we're going to be merciful to our audience.
People don't deserve that.
But I mean, I think, go back and give it a watch. I think if nothing else, to see the completely, the many faces of Eve that is embedded into the production of this movie, of all the different movies it is fascinating. And we didn't even really talk about Annette O'Toole's kind of doing some really good stuff in this movie. And kind of, just even the whole arc of Superman realizing he's, becoming, drunk, fun Superman. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting movie in some ways. That Superman 4 is just doesn't have. I mean, we'll do Superman 4 later.
This is just Richard Lest off the chain, which is something to behold, I think, because he's threatened it in several other films before this. But Superman 2, you know, the wig flying off and the guy on the roller skates. That was just a warm up for this, really.
Yeah. It's got. I just want to say I hadn't mentioned yet the two scenes that really disturbed me too are when he's kind of he's supposed to go and rescue the truck, right? It's dangling off the bridge. That scene still kind of bothers me to watch to this day because it's like, Superman, stop acting on that.
Yeah.
But it's an Ed O'Toole.
Like, he's being creepy. Like it's wrong. It's like, And then when he gets there, so him not leaving is what bothers me more today. But as a kid, what bothered me was, but when he gets there and the truck is already fallen and the guy is like, oh, you know, if only you got here sooner. And that kind of where they linger on him and he goes, oh, I didn't make it. I always make it in time. I didn't make it in time this time. Like, you know, I'm losing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's got a lot of great stuff like that. So,
yeah. I mean, obviously I'm very nostalgic for this, but I do really have a soft spot. And like I said at the start, I know it's not a good film, but for me, it's like Soldier with Kurt Russell or Life Force or Species 2. I know it's bad for me, but I can't help myself. I probably won't be joining you guys for Superman 4, but I just want to say thanks, brothers, for having me, like Richard Pryor.
I'm happy to know someone else enjoys the movie. I still enjoy the movie. Knowing that it's bad, I still enjoy it.
I enjoy parts of it. I'm not saying I don't. It's still Superman. I still like it, but I would not use it to teach a screenwriting class. I'll put it that way.
Right on.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging with us and our weird technical glitches, and we will be back soon.
Thanks.
Thank you guys again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.